With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Let's Talk About Sex, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And I am your host, Estela Rodriguez-Jebril, licensed clinical therapist and the Muslim sex coach. We are live here on Sky Channel 752 and across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I want to invite you to join in with tonight's discussion and get advice by simply calling through to the studio on 01-924-231-083. Standard network rates do apply, so please ensure that you have the bill payer's permission before calling in. You can also share your thoughts and confidence via WhatsApp by messaging 07950797017. And we're back again this evening with a new episode. And last week, we talked about how difficult and uncomfortable it is for Muslims to talk about sex and how important it is to educate our ummah so that we can prevent problems. Many of our marriages are suffering. What makes a marriage successful? What makes a marriage function well? Today, I'm going to share with you 7 ways to spice up your marriage. Now, society and culture tells us what a marriage is supposed to look like. And I want you to take a moment right now and think about the story, that image that you believe a marriage is supposed to be like. What is the story about the role of a wife, the role of a husband, and where is that story rooted? Because you learned that story. By doing this, you'll be better able to become aware about the rigidity or the flexibility that you have about these roles. And when you can gain that type of awareness, you will be better able to step into how you can cultivate that change from within for a more harmonious and a spicier marriage. I want to invite you to view marriage in a different way. I want to share with you these 7 ways that I believe, and research has also shown that they're foundational for a healthy and a happy marriage, full of love, full of respect, and full of hot, spicy intimacy for the husband as well as the wife. Now, the first is finding the love within. We all hear about self-care, self-love. We have been programmed to find love and approval outside of ourselves. When you deny yourself and you begin to suppress your needs, you begin to build resentment, to build bitterness within you. An outstanding love doesn't come from 2 half-filled people coming together. No, 2 half-filled people do not make a whole. This is not how you complete your life. This is not how you complete your marriage. Outstanding love comes from 2 whole people coming together to share and enhance their love that is already full, that is already beautiful, Self-love means that you love yourself fully and you also love your spouse fully. You don't want to depend on the love you have for your spouse to fill you up. That's never going to work. When you lose the sense of self, you're going to become absorbed in your marriage in a really unhealthy way that results in feelings of not being enough, not feeling or seeing your own value. When you depend on your partner for satisfaction, validation, and self-worth, you begin to struggle and you lose your identity. The more needy you become on each other, the more the toxic emotions will come up. The toxic emotions of frustration, resentment, wanting to control. You're going to become all these emotions if you don't fully love yourself, if you don't put yourself first, if you don't fill yourself up fully before filling yourself up with your spouse. How can you develop deeper self-love? You want to maintain a healthy degree of space and independence in your marriage. You want to learn to thrive on your own, doing your own things, doing the things that you love to do. Remember, if you can't access happiness from within, no one will be able to give you that happiness that you're wanting to fill you up. And if you're not in a place where you're fully happy, then you're not going to be benefiting from the fullness of marriage. The second is embrace the gift of hardship. You and I know we will be tested the most in our marriages. So be prepared. Those of you that are married, you know this is true because you've experienced those hardships. And those of you that are stepping into marriage, be prepared. We know that with every hardship, there is ease. Hardship forces us to grow, forces us to really connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be able to be in that place of enduring the hardship allows us to truly develop a deep love, deep meaning in the relationship. When you embrace the gift of hardship, you gain wisdom that gives you access to hope and to joy. And knowing that you can endure the hardship makes the love in your heart grow deeper. And if this isn't happening in your marriage, if you're experiencing hardships and you're not experiencing growth from it, then you want to be able to reevaluate where you are, reevaluate and take inventory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never places anything on us that we can't bear. When you're facing challenges, it's that opportunity to remind yourself that the storm is going to settle, that you will gain wisdom, that you will gain insight, and you'll become more aware of your needs. You'll become more aware of your spouse's needs. And this will cultivate a closeness. This will cultivate your ability to become more resilient in your marriage, building character. Don't get discouraged by your failings. Don't get discouraged by your spouse's failings. Allow the challenges that are presented in your life to bring you closer. We're getting some questions on WhatsApp. There's a sister that is saying salam, and she wants to know about performing oral sex. No, okay, no, this is a brother. I apologize. I believe this is a brother that with a wife in Islam. Is this allowed? Okay, these are these are expressions of love. So we know what is not permissible in Islam. And if you're comfortable with oral sex, then you want to embrace it. And that allows you to, and this is interesting that this question is coming up during the topic, the way of hardship, because if you don't embrace what is hard in your life, so if you're having struggles with intimacy and connecting with your spouse in a way that excites you, then you're creating that hardship for yourself. So the third way is to acknowledge each other. The marriages that are most successful are those where the partners can really share their inner world and can really cultivate that expression of their real thoughts and their real feelings, their real desires. Your desires to connect, intimately with your spouse's body is what allows you to create that closeness in your relationship, where you acknowledge each other and you recognize with consistency that thoughtful validation, knowing what your husband's needs are, knowing what your wife's needs are. It means that when your partner tells you about their needs, you're not going to suppress their feelings. You're going to embrace them and you're going to meet their needs. So practice being mindful, practice being good listeners. And this will allow you to cultivate that closeness and spice up your marriage and not be afraid to step into those areas where you feel nervous or you feel uncomfortable. We know what is not permissible in our intimacy. Everything else is permissible. I want to maintain just the best of manners and the best of description. So oral sex is something that is exciting. So if it excites you, allow yourself to recognize the differences and embrace it. We are going to continue after a short break. And we are back here live on Let's Talk About Sex, talking about the different ways that you can spice up your marriage, the different ways that you can connect with your spouse at a deeper level. And I want to recap a question that was sent in about oral sex. And even though I'm comfortable with oral sex, it's really a question that you also want to explore with the different schools, depending on the school that you follow. And you want to be able to just reach out to the alim and talk about this at a deeper level. It's a very good question, and it's a question that we want to talk about. There was also a question about a brother that's been married for 10 years, and the intimacy stopped in their marriage, and how can they improve their marriage and their intimacy. And the fourth way that I'm going to discuss is one that really goes well with this question, because it's about allowing each other to be on your own journey. And when you don't allow each other to be on your own particular journey of growth and development in the marriage, it can really affect the relationship. Now, can a relationship really last if one partner is growing and the other one isn't? This is a question that a lot of couples, ask themselves when they see this divide, when they see this gap in their marriage. There's always a reason why there's that growth that is going in a different direction. And what you want to be able to do is just boldly step into the other person's shoes. What is going on with your spouse that they're not responding to you? What is it that needs to be shifting in the way that you listen to each other, in the way that you communicate with each other? When your partner is not on the same page as you, at some point, yes, it's going to impact your relationship. And this is an opportunity. It's common for one partner to speed up, their growth in a particular area. But what it doesn't spell is disaster. And what you want to be able to do is look at the signs. Look at the signs, because that's one of the things that gets impacted the most is intimacy. If you feel like you're growing in different directions, then you stay away from each other. You don't engage in conversation. You don't play, you're not playful with each other. So yes, there are going to be many aspects of growing apart, and this could cause a strain. And what you want to be able to do is embark your space of self-mastery, and then learn to, with emotional intelligence, express your interest to your spouse in a way where you can become influential, planting seeds, taking turns influencing each other is a powerful way to reignite that spark in your marriage, bringing your interests to the table and discussing them and allowing yourself to break down those blocks, break down those barriers. So many times, our married couples become strangers because they just stop talking to each other. They stop reaching out to each other. They stop being curious about each other. So you want to be able to allow your spouse to be on their own journey, and you want to be able to be courageous enough to spark a conversation and be curious. A question is coming in. I recently got married, but me and my wife still live with her parents, and so intimacy is challenging. What do you advise? This is a really good question, because many young couples start out, living with their in-laws, and there's that challenge that is in their mind. Are my parents hearing us when we're intimate? Are we being too loud? This is a very good question that really can transition well into the fifth way, which is having a sense of humor and being able to laugh at those uncomfortable situations. Laughter is the best medicine. It has just an important physiological effect on you and your soulmate. What you have to remember is that you're here in this world because your parents had sex. So if you're living with your parents as a young couple, then you want to be able to create that space where it's safe. And this is why it's so important to talk about sex, because it's this subject that nobody brings to the table, and it just becomes this rigid topic. And when you are rigid, then you're going to close yourself off. You're going to close yourself off. The art, of laughter and consistently amusing each other is one of the best ways to cure yourself of that rigidity, that stress. Modern research shows that people with a sense of humor have fewer symptoms of illness, have less stress. When you are less humorous, that stress rises to the surface. So bring a sense of humor, a sense of laughter into your marriage. And if you're living with your extended family, you want to be able to remember that they were in that situation too. Your in-laws were in that situation at one point. There's a sister calling in. How exciting.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Wa alaikum assalam.
It's Muzat here, Muzat Ilahi, and I'm just calling to say that, I really appreciate that what you're saying. All those points that you brought out, and I think it's just a taboo subject, and I think the main thing is that you've touched upon, and I'm very connected to, is the fact about intimacy. And I think lots of couples, because I think, like you said, sex is such a big taboo that they're like, it's just there to produce children. It's not there to connect as a couple. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this as a gift. Like the Prophet Muhammad has said that, we're meant to be together as clothes for each other, and, you're meant to be a sexual benefit to each other. So you don't go and, obviously commit adultery or sins like that, but obviously it goes on so many levels, like you've mentioned, is, it releases a lot of stress. It, it helps you to bond together. And like you said, the most thing that touched upon is about understanding each other. But what my question is for you here today is, I don't know if you recognize me, it's Muzat, but...
Assalamu alaikum, yes.
So, but my main question for you here is today is for the fact that I think there's many couples, or especially men, are not as expressant in expressing their feelings, like saying, I think lots of women are dying for is for their partner to appreciate them. So I think, can you please at least touch upon how a woman, a wife can get closer to her husband in the fact that he will openly say this without being in the bedroom? Because I think many men will say it in the bedroom, but they won't say it outside the bedroom. So I think there's that lack of intimacy that where a woman might feel insecure in the fact that, hang on a second, when he wants something, he's always appreciating me and stuff like that, but why out of the bedroom he does not? That is my question for you today.
And we have to remember, that's such a good question, because yes, culture is such a big part of how we look at sex, how we look at marriage. And this is one of the reasons why we have to talk about this subject. It's this generational pattern that we have. And it goes back to the first point that I mentioned, that to really create and cultivate a healthy marriage, you have to find that love from within. You have to find that love from within. Men are from Venus, men are from Mars, and women are from Venus. We're from totally different planets. And men have been nurtured. They've been nurtured to suppress their feelings. And one of the ways that as women, that we can really bring that place of that safety component. And the reason men suppress their emotions of empathy and love and compassion outside of the bedroom is because they don't know how. They've never been taught. So they have to be taught. And this is where our strength really rises and shines, because we are empathetic, we are compassionate. And when we can stay away from blaming, when we can stay away from complaining, then what we can do is we can cultivate that safety for them by acknowledging them. Acknowledgement is so important. Embracing the hardship and knowing that you love yourself so much and you love your spouse that you're going to help him through that journey. That's his journey. And that's that aspect of allowing him to be on his journey. You want to be able to acknowledge and validate what is real. This is such a great question, and it's so wonderful when we get calls like this. Thank you so much for calling in. We do have more calls coming in, and we are nearly out of time. And so I want you to remember that you have to really keep in mind the journey that you're on, the journey that your spouse is on. You want to have a sense of humor. You want to be passionate in the bedroom by recognizing that you can take the initiative. This is for you, my sisters. You can take the initiative. Many times we wait for our partner to initiate. You can be the passionate kisser. You can be the one that's touching him. You can be the one that's holding his hands. And then don't let that seventh, the most important one is you have to be able to let go of guilt. The seventh way to really ignite that spice back into your marriage is to let go of the guilt. Don't carry that guilt. Don't place guilt on your spouse, because that is then just going to cause shame. And shame is an emotion that is so devastating to all of our marriages. We need to be able to understand that a marriage is a spiritual journey. You have to open yourself up and be flexible. You have to get rid of the rigidity. You have to bring these amazing questions. And I hope that we continue to get more and more questions and more people reach out to continue this conversation.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Let's Talk About Sex.